Oh, well, shit. This really is not the video I wanted to make next, but here we are. So after making 3 ESO videos, 2 in which I bitch about the game's shortcomings and beg for features, and 1 where I spend several minutes saying, lol, I told you so, to a bunch of whiny babies who don't understand action combat design, I really wanted my next video to be more positive. That's not to say those videos were devoid of positivity. I did talk at length about how I love the game, and that's why I care when it falls short, but I never really got to speak my piece on what made me fall in love in the first place, so I could illustrate to those who don't get it why this game is actually great. But as I worked on the script for that, the Gold Road chapter came out. I don't tend to get overly hyped for things because I try to temper expectations and use historical evidence to do so. Gold Road had some intrigue for me, though, and it was another gotcha moment at blind ZeniMax haters and Oblivicells, honestly, who claimed ZOS didn't have the balls to introduce spellcrafting, which I argued against for ages. But the story was another point of intrigue for me, as a new Daedric Prince is practically unprecedented, particularly in a game so early in the timeline, and one that so many so-called Elder Scrolls fans try to bar from being canon, even though it isn't up to them, while at the same time trying to include Coda as canon. I don't fucking know, dude. I, for one, was in favor of having a new prince. I thought it would open so many doors, both figuratively and literally, in what this game could introduce, but now that it's out, well, here are my thoughts. I'm going to summarize the 2 stories of Gold Road and Necrom for the sake of context for this video, so if you don't want spoilers, here's your chance to pause the video, sink 9,000 hours into running around and spamming the E button at things until the quests are complete, and then come back to get my thoughts on them. So here we go. Keep in mind, I am doing a lot of this from memory to preserve sort of the emotional reactions I had to the story beats, and so there's going to be details missing, especially since it's been a year since Necrom. That said, I'm only doing the Cliff's Notes version on Necrom, since there's only a couple main points I want to focus on from it. Basically, Necrom introduces us to Laramil the Wise, an acolyte of Hermaeus Mora, the Prince of Forbidden Knowledge. She refers to the player as proxy and tells us Mora needs another mortal to step in and help him prevent a disaster that could unravel all of reality as the threads of fate are being frayed. Throughout the quest, we are also introduced to Torvasard, a Daedra of unknown allegiance who is working with Periite and Vermina to infiltrate Mora's realm of Apocrypha and steal something from him. Curate Gadain, a keeper at the Necrom Necropolis, or Necrompolis for short, Scroot, a sassy pocket watcher who serves Mora, and Meln the Mouthless, a Telvanni magister who got betrayed to death by an ambitious Telvanni called Shelreni. I guess ambitious Telvanni is kind of an oxymoron, or no, kind of a redundant statement because they mean the same thing. Meln is easily one of the funniest characters in ESO, up there with the likes of Aerox the Mutilator, though I would say Aerox is still top dog in that regard. Did I just actually say top dog? The fuck? Throughout this chapter, you learn that long ago, Hermaeus Mora conspired with the 3 Anticipations, Azura, Boethia, and Mephala, to imprison another Daedric prince and erase the memory of her from our reality. This is where some controversy started with this DLC, as many people are against the idea of anyone but Bethesda adding new lore, especially in terms of a new deity to the pantheon of the Elder Scrolls universe. This is, of course, despite the fact that Bethesda works very closely with ZeniMax to oversee and approve all lore before it is added to the game. I am not in that camp personally because I love Elder Scrolls lore for the most part, and I like when they add new stuff. It's kind of like Pokemon. I liked Pokemon Gen 1, so it was cool when they came out with more generations of Pokemon. Weird, I know. This new Daedric prince goes by the name Ethelia, and yes, I know the game pronounces it Ethelia, but I don't care because it sounds lame to me. She was known as the Prince of Paths and has the ability to alter reality in the threads of fate, which Hermaeus Mora uses to predict the future outcomes of the world and maintain a certain amount of order within the Ouroboros. Because of Ethelia's ability, Hermaeus Mora became nervous that she can do things he cannot predict, and also says he sees a future where she becomes too dangerous and unmakes the universe. I don't know who the hell made Hermaeus Mora the keeper of the order of reality, but here we are, I guess. Another thing about this chapter that I'd like to mention is the budding romance between Curate Gadain and Laramil. Laramil is sort of out of touch with the mortal realm, having lived in Apocrypha and served Mora for so long, but she develops a soft spot for Gadain, our short king, who immediately seems to be entranced by her. It's a really cute sort of side story of two awkward people trying to make something work using the player character as a go-between at times. There isn't much of a payoff at the end of Necrom, but because the story leads into Gold Road, there's more to be had. In the prologue for Gold Road, Torvasard returns, who we've now learned was a servant of Athelia, whose memory sort of lingered on there being something missing. As a result, he had set out to find what he was missing, learned of Athelia and what Mora did to her, and tries to set her free, a task that he accomplishes in the prologue quest. As a result, Athelia returns to reality, ending up conveniently in the Westweald, our new zone for the Gold Road chapter. I don't remember if they exactly explained why she ended up in the Westweald of all places, considering she was imprisoned in Apocrypha, but it might be explained in there somewhere, but it is once again the writers just kind of taking advantage of the fact that the dragon fires aren't lit, so she's able to manifest in Nirn pretty easily, although she does have her memory wiped. Like most fictional amnesiacs, though, she can still remember how to use language pretty readily, so that helps. In this chapter, we see the return of Larabil and Gadain and are reintroduced to Baragon, Evely Sharparrow's much less annoying brother. We also learn of a cult called the Recollection, led by Torvasard, and a new character, Shard Marshal Vargas, terrible name, who is a Shard-born Dremora, a new type of Daedra employed by the Prince of Paths. Throughout the story, we try to thwart the Recollection's efforts to spread something called the Wild Burn, which will overtake the forests of the region and awaken some ancient alien power and restore Athelia to her former glory, memories intact. We meet King Nantharion and then are immediately ambushed by Recollection because of a spy feeding them information. Boy, I wonder who it could be. Why, it's King Nantharion, of course, the only other character of note we'd met just before being ambushed. Seriously, everyone is a traitor in ESO writing. I don't know what the fuck's up with that. There's a green speaker later who is like, I've never heard of the Recollection, and then immediately tries to recruit us into the Recollection. I feel like ZeniMax does this just so they can give us named characters to kill off, so that we meet new people who, but they don't have to keep them in the story after the DLC. Along the way, we also run into Athelia herself, who is kind of weird looking. Like, I guess she's not mortal and essentially alien to us, but given that they released a statue of her and a bunch of official art of her prior to the chapter coming out, something seems really off. Also, what the fuck is up with her eyes? Like, why do they look so dead? There's no shine to them like you'd see on normal eyes. It's really distracting, especially since her whole aesthetic is glass and crystals. I also want to interject here. I'm going a bit off script, but I wrote this script a while back, and I mean, there's a ton of people who were like, why does she look so fucking weird, right? And there was a whole forum post about this. And I chimed in on the forum post and I said something to the effect of, you know, it's really weird that she looks like this. It just kind of reeks of like DEI involvement of some kind, like SBI or some other DEI organization getting involved. It just feels really weird, especially given that there was a statue of her that looks totally different. And I mean, if I had bought a statue, I would feel kind of ripped off because it doesn't represent the way she looks in game. And it's just there's a lot of weirdness to it. That comment got flagged for trolling and disrupting the flow of forum conversations, specifically citing the sentence where I said it just reeks of DEI involvement. And I was given a warning against my forum account, for saying something to that effect. So mentioning Sweet Baby Inc. or DEIs in general apparently is against the terms of service on the forums, which I get wanting to distance yourself from a lot of like the back and forth discussion in the industry right now. But as a general rule of thumb, this is sort of a Streisand effect where if you don't want people talking about it, people are going to talk about it more because you're trying to cover it up. Like, that's literally, that's so stupid. Like, to me, it's an admission of guilt. They are working with the DEI, which is like, just be transparent about it. If you made a mistake and decided to work with one of these extortionist groups, just be honest that you fucked up and you did something stupid. And the funny thing is that even though I got the warning against my account and they refused to be specific as to how I was trolling, despite the fact that this was not trolling, because trolling would be if I was specifically baiting people and trying to cause rage or whatever. But it's not what I was doing. It was very clear in my responses to them and in the original post that I was just offering my own stance, my own opinion, what it seemed was going on as somebody who also designs characters at a high level. What's even weirder is that in a recent update to the game, they actually ended up adding reflections to Athelia's eyes because they realized it looked fucking weird. And it doesn't read like they made a mistake. It reads like they realized people noticed it and decided to fix it later, because it came like way after, which is hilarious to me. So why are you covering it up? Just be honest about it. If you fucked up, you fucked up. Like, whatever. Anyways, this is where some of the conflict came into the story for me in the Gold Road story, and not a bad conflict. While I was already super into Athelia's whole glass wings aesthetic and supportive of the idea of a new prince, even though I'm not really interested in her domain, I don't really care about the paths or whatever, the character herself is actually very sweet in the story. She seems really cool overall, and it's fun running into her and trying to ease her back into being alive after having her memory stolen. Even the player character's dialogue options seem very caring and compassionate towards her predicament. Torvasard is also really cool, going out of his way multiple times in Necrom and in Gold Road to avoid conflict with us and straight up telling us he doesn't wish to hurt us or anyone else. Now, that said, the Recollection is definitely evil, straight up killing people and destroying cities to bring back their prince. It's weirdly incongruent, but it could be chalked up to Shard Marshal Vargas being kind of a bitch, which I thought, they were leading up to her being maybe the actual real problem, the real villain of the story, rather than Athelia. But I'll get to that later. Eventually, Athelia finally regains her power and memories and decides she wants to undo the stuff that Mora did to erase her from reality and everyone's memories. To do this, she returns to the plane of oblivion that was once her own realm known as Miramore. This place is actually gorgeous, and I love it. Here we discover a major revelation. The pocket realm of oblivion that houses Fargrave and the endless deserts around it was originally Miramore. This is a huge bombshell, as Fargrave was introduced 2 years ago as a sort of neutral way station realm between the mortal plane and oblivion. With no ruling prince, it was easier to travel to and from oblivion and from the mortal realm, as it is kind of a place of many doors. This makes extra sense, of course, when you realize that Athelia is the prince of the many paths. Tons of doors or paths between realms. It makes perfect sense. She returns here and heads to something called the Loom of the Untraveled Road, a machine of great power in her realm that allows her to literally reshape history and reality. We step in to stop her, as it would destroy reality entirely as we know it, or so we're told by Mora. Throughout this entire storyline, Torvasard tries to convince us that Hermaeus Mora is playing us and trying to destroy Athelia because he's jealous of her power and simply fearful of things that he cannot predict. After all, Daedra do have a habit of manipulating mortals and lying to them, especially the Prince of Forbidden Knowledge. Another major theme throughout this DLC is that Daedra, being unending, are incapable of natural change. They cannot change, they cannot be changed, nor do they adapt. I'll get more into that later, but keep it in mind because it's important. We also learn on our journey that there are infinite separate realities that exist where there are different versions of Athelia who act in very different ways from each other, but combine their powers together to prevent them from spiraling out of control. Okay, that's a lot of expansion on the universe, so let's just get back to the story at hand. We end up destroying the Loom and preventing Athelia from unmaking the universe. She then absorbs the Loom's power and starts glowing red and going mad with power and planning to unmake everything. And then the story ends, sort of. So this is kind of weird, but we go back to Nirn and Baragon's like, we won, time to celebrate. We just unleashed a fucking the power of an untold destructive force and gave it to a Daedric prince who is apparently unstable, but we won, time to celebrate, whatever. And this is where you might learn that if you didn't do Necrom's story first, you don't get access to the actual conclusion of the story. That said, I did do Necrom first and still didn't have access because I did it on a different character, because they released a new class with Necrom and I wanted to match the themes, so I made a new character that fit with the new class so I could play through the story in style. So I had to go back and do it on my main because I was doing Gold Road on my main. I don't understand the point of account-wide achievements if they don't matter. I also don't really get how most other zone stories that tie into other zones will force you to go do the first zone's quest before you can do that zone's. I don't know, it's whatever. I speedran Necrom and went back to complete Gold Road. It was kind of weird doing it out of order, but whatever. Anyways, we go on to learn that Athelia, having been stopped by Hermaeus Mora from restoring Miramore, isn't actually planning to unmake all of reality, but only to kill Mora and transform Apocrypha into Miramore. Mora does, however, say that doing so and rewriting history will still destroy the universe somehow, and we see this through the tears in the fabric of reality cropping up in both Nirn and Apocrypha, though again, it could just be Mora desperately trying to save his own seat of power. So we step in using a new relic we made to remind Athelia of her alternate selves and calm her hoe ass down. This works, and as a result, she chooses to restore Mora's power that she'd been siphoning and then divest herself of her own power by casting it into the void. At the last second, Torvasard is like, "No, how dare you abandon our goal? Even though I am the most loyal follower of all time and do everything you say, I'm going to take this power and destroy the world instead of you." This is so fucking out of the blue and out of character for Torvasard that I actually rolled my eyes IRL. Crazy, I know. Then we have to fight Torvasard, which for some reason is way harder than Athelia. Not because he's actually hard, to be fair, but because he has like so many invincibility phases. Like, just fucking die, dude. I hate this design. So we put him down, and then Athelia restores Mora's power and casts her own into the void. Before doing so, she erases Torvasard from existence, so he'll stop being a lapdog or whatever, since apparently Daedra cannot change. I don't know, whatever. And then we talk to the two princes about what to do. Athelia originally planned to submit and be re-imprisoned, but then comes up with another solution. Apparently, no matter what she does, this imprisonment would be a temporary solution because her power will always find a way to come back to her, I guess, and she'll go mad again and then be unstoppable next time somehow, and it's all due to the nature of being a prince somehow. So she proposes that Mora find a realm devoid of magic and Daedra so she can use her power to open a portal to go there, and then we use the Abolisher, a sword forged by Boethia, to cut through reality and stop Athelia back in the Alien era to destroy the portal so she can't return ever. Mora says that he never considered that option, but it's a good idea, so we should do it. So then we banish her. Another thing along the way is that Curate Gadain, who Laramil was getting really sweet on, sacrificed himself to protect us from being banished to the many paths by Torvasard. Or at least that's what I thought happened, because it looked like something that had happened to other characters in the story earlier, but it's actually, we got thrown through a reality tear, which I guess, Gadain gets thrown through a reality tear, which totally destroys him, I guess. I don't know. It's very confusing because the visual effects are identical, but whatever. Laramil is reasonably distraught by this and brings it up with Athelia, who says she can't do anything about it. Despite, being the prince of the many paths, being able to change reality, she can't do this. She can't bring back Gadain. Whatever. Again, there were two other characters who got banished to the many paths, I guess, not thrown through a reality tear, even though, again, it looked identical. So Baragon and some legionary bitch who's about as interesting as playing Starfield. Get wrecked, lol. And we immediately brought those characters back using Azura's Lamp, another of the relics used to imprison Athelia previously. So prior to Athelia saying she can't bring back Gadain, there was no reason for me, at least, to believe that he was gone permanently, even though everyone acted like it. And there was no send-off or anything. He just kind of unceremoniously died. But then she just says, "Oh, nope, he's gone. Get over yourself." And she gives her some vision or whatever to as a consolation prize, I guess. I don't fucking know. For the final part of the epilogue, we are summoned once more by Mora, but Laramil chooses to come with us. She wants to ask the prince to help her understand the visions that Athelia gave her as consolation for Gadain's death. Mora cuts her off before she can finish and says, "Oh, you want that mortal dude back? Yeah, I can do that, no problem." Even though he was there in the room when Laramil asked Athelia for the same thing, and she said no. Okay, but then he says it will come at a cost. He doesn't say what it'll be, but she better be ready to pay up when the time comes, like he's some sort of fucking mob boss. It's like, bitch, you stopped reality from ending and literally saved your life. I don't think she owes you anything, but I guess, Daedric princes do be enslaving and shit. So Gadain comes back, not in the moment though, because he sends him to Nirn for whatever reason, and he tells Laramil to fuck off so he can talk to his new favorite student alone, which is us, of course. The disrespect for Laramil. She didn't do anything wrong. She was the perfect loyal servant. She was like Torvasard, except Torvasard had that weird change at the end. He says that even though he agreed to banishing Athelia to mundane land, where all the our peers who hate fantasy settings come from, and destroying the only path there was an acceptable solution to the problem, that he's still a paranoid drama queen, so he's going to erase everyone's memory of her again, except his own, since he can't, and the player character as a little treat for saving the world, a little cherry on top. That's the moment where I drew the line. That's the moment where I was like, nah, I've had fucking enough of this. This is the moment that sent me over the edge and made me so fucking mad that I had to make a video on it. Now, I'm going to go off script here. But I want to preface this by saying that this is not something I normally do a lot of. Particularly in the climax of a video, I find that when I just let my thoughts ramble, I end up stumbling too much and also missing key talking points that I want to get across. That said, in a recent comment I received, someone told me that my rants are an art form and I should consider doing audiobooks. Thanks for that comment, by the way. That really made my day. So I just want to try something here and give you all an unbridled, unscripted rant so you can see what my Discord chat experiences on the reg. And so I can just let all my feelings out at once here. So here goes. I'm going to address the smaller elephant in the room first, which is having Curate Gadain have a fake out death that we got faked out on twice. It's really like insulting to be doing this, especially when I don't want to say we're in current year, so you should know better, but there's so much historical precedent for people fucking this kind of trope up. Like I can seldom think of a time where a fake out like this really works. And here it definitely doesn't. Like, again, they used identical visual effects pretty much for Gadain's quote unquote death versus the death of, or the fake out death of the other two characters, the Imperial Legionary and whatever, Baragon. So it's really stupid, but then also like it was already done because it was like, there's no way he's dead. And then they were trying to really convince us by saying Athelia, the person who can literally rewrite history, change reality at its core, can't bring him back. Like, that's so odd. And yeah, you might say, well, I divested myself of my power, so I don't have my power, so I couldn't do it. If I had my power, I could, but we can't let me get my power back. They could have said that, but they really didn't. But also, again, Mora being in the room at the time, not stepping in and saying, I can bring him back, is ridiculous. Also, Athelia not realizing that Mora could bring him back, like, go ask him. That wasn't brought up either. Like, it's just really insulting. Like, do you really think we're that stupid? Like, we know better. We know that this is a fake out. Just stop it. Stop writing like this. It's the same with the fucking stupid constant betrayals that major characters, or characters that are introduced as being major characters, always go down this path of betrayal in this game. Stop it. We can see it coming. It's not subtle. It's not smart. It's not brilliant. Subverting expectations doesn't mean anything if you didn't build up to it. If you didn't have it be an actual surprise for a good reason, it doesn't work. Like, fucking stop it. On top of that, why banish her to another realm? Why effectively undo everything that we just fought for? Like, it's such a weird direction to take. It seems like it was cowardice, right? Like, it just seems like you couldn't come up with a way for her to continue to exist within the realm, and were scared of your own writing, so you just wrote her out of the story. Why? Like, genuinely, why? She divested herself of her power and was like, oh, it'll always find a way back to me. And then so she just leaves because apparently she's the problem. Not her power is the problem, but she's the problem. Because even though her on her own, she seems fine. She seems normal. It's just when she gets her power that things are a problem. So obviously it's the power that's the issue, right? But we didn't get rid of the power. We didn't remove that from the reality we live in. We removed her. That makes no sense, because that means that somebody else could just take the power for themselves and use it to unmake the world in the same way Athelia was threatening to do. Like, why did they do it that way? There were so many other ways they could have done this. Why not make her mortal? Why not seal her power away itself rather than sealing her away? Like, there's got to be some alternative. And this whole concept of, well, Daedra can't be changed, they are unchangeable, that's ridiculous. It's not true. We know it's not true. You can change Daedra, absolutely. Like, there's a genuinely enough precedent with things like Jigalag and Sheogorath that you could absolutely make the argument that they are changeable. It just has to be, the change has to come from outside, and Mora is there to do that. Why? Like, what's to say that he couldn't? You're making up new lore anyways. Why not use pre-established lore to expand into new lore like they did with Elsewhere or fucking anything else? Like, it's just so fucking stupid. I think that the whole crux of this thing is, why did they delete our memories? This is the stupidest thing. They deleted the whole world's memories of Athelia because they know the power still exists and it'll find its way back to somebody if somebody knows who she is. Someone will try to find it. Like, so they just delete everyone's memories of the thing, but it's like you just turned this whole story from across 2 chapters into it was all a dream. Really? How did nobody in the writing booth sit down and be like, oh wait, no, that's not that, we can't do that. That's the worst trope, the most hated trope in writing. We can't just make it all a dream. We can't just render the player's actions, especially in an interactive medium, you can't render the player's actions completely pointless. The entire 2-year story that they did, or year-long story technically, because it was just within a year of each other. It's like, you can't render that entire amount of effort completely ineffective, completely useless and pointless in the overall story. That's one of the biggest complaints about Elder Scrolls as an MMO, is that you don't have much impact on the world as it is, because it's an MMO. You can't change other people's worlds with your own decisions. That's kind of the problem of it being an MMO, based on an RPG series that's about player choice and the player's choices affecting the world at large. You can't just take their power away even more. Like, fuck, man. And then they just, so many other unexplained things. Like, what is Wildburn? Where the fuck did that come from? They never explained what any of it was. It was just like, oh, it's Wildburn. Yeah, it's wild. It's a wild burn. It burns wild and it's blue and that's a thing that exists. Why not, right? And I mean, there were so many other ways to handle the Athelia story. Like, you could have made it so that Mora really was just a jealous god and he wanted her power for himself. And what's to stop him from being, since he's the only other person that remembers it, what's to stop him from taking the power for himself later on? What's to stop him from doing it? We saw that Torvasard could do it. Hell, why did they make Torvasard become a villain at the end when they could have just done Shard Marshal Vargas? Did they really need us to have 3 boss fights, one of which was just half-assed as hell? They could have just brought in Shard Marshal Vargas as the main villain and be like, she's actually the problem with Athelia. She's the one whispering in her ear, telling her to do horrible things. You could have just shifted the blame and absolutely been like, yeah, Mora didn't know about it before, because the whole thing with Athelia's crew is that they can't be seen by Mora. He doesn't know where they are. He can't track them. He has no idea what they're up to at any given moment. Absolutely he could have been fooled by it being actually Shard Marshal Vargas. And yeah, maybe the loom of the untraveled road, maybe that is a problem. Maybe that should have been destroyed. I think that would have been a good conclusion as well. Like, if it's really the problem, it's the thing holding her power in place or whatever, just destroy it. Get rid of it. Don't let her absorb the power. Clearly that's the problem, right? Like, just seal that away somewhere else where it's out of sight. Because it wasn't even sealed away. The loom of the untraveled road is just in Fargrave. Somebody could have just stumbled across it and used it to do stupid, horrible things. Like, again, it just makes no sense. They wrote all this foundation that runs counter to the climax of the story. And it's like, you could argue, oh, well, maybe they'll bring her back later because she, they'll come up with some contrived way to get her back into reality. I mean, maybe, but it would be even stupider than what they did originally. Like, it's just, like, oh my god, it would just be, it would be the fucking Rise of Skywalker to their Last Jedi that this story was. Like, it's just the wrong writing all the way through. Now, this has been a long video, but it's also been a fucking late video. So late, in fact, that the next major update is already out for ESO. Well, I guess the video actually isn't late. The update is early. If ZeniMax really thinks that 2 months is a quarter of a year, then I gotta be honest, I don't know what to tell them. That ain't it. So before we let the sun set on this video, let me drop some quick thoughts on Update 43, the untitled update, because they didn't release anything. First of all, I'm not the only one who feels this way, but this feels pretty slim for a quarterly major update. Pretty weird that they released some very minor quality of life changes and a set of balancing changes only about as large as the previous update, which is weird since their quarter 3 updates tend to be focused on balancing changes, and the game, while in an overall fairly balanced state in some areas, also has major problem points that have still not been addressed. First of all, Arcanist nerf. Okay, not a really meaningful change overall. Less execute scaling on Cephaliarch's flail, no healing outside of combat from tentacles, like, alright. Whatever. I still have vigor, so what the fuck was the point? Sorc changes, easily the most confusing because they worded the fucking patch notes wrong. Like, goddamn, can't write code, can't write English. Who'd have thunk? So it says curse can no longer be blocked, but they also say they removed the behavior of it not being blockable to reduce the incredibly powerful burst of class condition. It doesn't make any sense. Is it blockable or not, ZOS? Like, just fix your language. So it's written really vague, but I have to think that they mean that the AOE damage is no longer blockable, but the initial burst, single target burst is? I fucking don't know. It's so poorly written. I would love some clarification since I'm kind of tired of having to do a bunch of my own experimentation just to figure anything in this game out. All right, Warden's Arctic Blast ability no longer heals if it hits someone on the initial cast, meaning that it works as a great burst heal outside of combat, so literally the opposite change that they did to the Tentacle on Arc. What's the consistency on this? What's going on? Why can't they just make things make sense? Also, an overall damage loss for Wardens and a tanking passive that is functionally worthless, so once more, great stuff, ZOS, just brilliant design. The Wardens didn't need a loss of damage. I mean, having it be that they only get their damage bonus by having less max health is a good change, but just reducing the amount of damage they get as well is just very strange. Like, it's a doubled nerf that makes no sense. The Nightblade changes are odd. Like, rearranging the skills makes plenty of sense, but the developer notes at the beginning of the section make no sense. Improved PvE damage production. What? Because having Veiled Strike on our in the assassination line now gives us 400 extra crit chance now because it's an assassin skill? Like, that doesn't make up for the fact that it's been completely rendered useless in PvE. Concealed Weapon, the Magicka morph, only gets its unique damage bonus when leaving stealth now during combat, which you don't do in PvE, in like high-end PvE, you don't use stealth, and it only works on mag specs because it's a Magicka ability. Like, it just doesn't work for them, and they are usually better suited to having a ranged spammable from Scribing or Psijic or Destro skill lines because every fight in this game hates melee characters. Surprise Attack doesn't benefit from the crit passive due to the fact that it has a guaranteed crit strike every 3 seconds, and I mean, they already have the highest crit chance in the game as a class, so why the fuck would it matter? Having 400 extra crit chance doesn't really improve our damage production at all. Like I don't think anyone would even notice. In fact, my parses are lower this patch on my Standblade, so I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Veiled Strike is just easily one of the worst spammables in the game now, and this change to it being an assassination skill doesn't help. And what's this shit about peeling back some of the defensiveness of the assassin playstyle? Shadow Cloak is still accessible and now grants major resolve for even longer. So what are you talking about? Does ZeniMax actually believe that players only utilize one skill line of their class? Like, holy balls, how did you miss the mark this hard? They're not losing any defensiveness, guys, just because fucking surprise attack is no longer in the shadow skill line, giving them slightly extra defensive passives or whatever. It doesn't help. The Necromancer changes, gotta be the weirdest timing to add Major Brutality, Sorcery, Savagery, and Prophecy to their class skills, considering now we have Scribing to fill in those gaps. But are the changes good? I don't know. I mean, it's nice to have more options for sourcing those buffs, but it does make spell power potions even less relevant than they already were in the game. Which, I mean, with the crash in the prices in the economy, like, they were already being more accessible, so it's just it's all weird timing, and it doesn't fix Necromancer in any way. Like I said, scribing updates already filled the scribing system already filled this gap in pretty much, so it feels too little, too late, and the class is still slow. Blast Bones doesn't work properly and should be treated as a projectile rather than a pathfinding whatever. With a second damage instance on a timer from the first impact. Like, Flame Skull is also way too fucking slow to be useful. Gravelord's Sacrifice and Rapid Rot are weird for Necro, since adding potency to damage over time abilities doesn't really work when the class only has 2 dots to begin with. 3, I guess, if you count Bone Goliath, which you shouldn't. Nightblade has 2 dots and doesn't tend to invest in Thaumaturgy as a result. Templar has 6 dots. DK has 7. Sorcerer has 3. Warden has 5. Arcanist has 3. Like, it just seems like they missed the mark on what to do with Necromancer overall. Like, I understand not wanting to be like every other Necromancer and every other RPG, but they might have just been better off with making it like every other Necromancer and every other RPG. Also, why remove their alt gen outside of combat? What is with this constant thing of removing the ability to produce alt outside of combat? Nightblades still have the ability to do so, and they have the highest alt production outside of combat of any class. So it's just, the whole thing just seems really weird. And they also have one of the most potent ultimates in the game. The point is lost on me, I guess. They could have just made it so all classes have easier alt gen outside of combat, and that would make fights more interesting in Cyrodiil and stuff, where like you start off a fight with just a ton of fucking alts out of the gate, and you have to like really be on your guard to handle it. Also, why don't we have a movement ability on Necro? Like, just Gravegrass could be easily turned into a dash skill. I don't know. The class just needs major changes still. Vampire's Undeath passive finally got nerfed. Good change overall, I think. The new class sets look kind of interesting. The aura effects they apply are different as well, which I appreciate. Thank you for that. Though I will say the biggest and most obvious change that I thought they were going to make, and for some reason they still haven't done, is to make the style pages for those class sets applicable to any class, because it's not the set itself, so why does it matter that it's on a different class? Like, it's so stupid. They finally bring in like good fucking outfits and stuff, and like the outfit station stuff came with Somerset, you know, fucking 4 years after launch, and then they still don't understand what their players actually want. Like, can I please just put Soul Cleaver on a DK or a Sorcerer or whatever? Like, who cares? Why does it matter? The Nightblade set is probably the most annoying, since it's just kind of pointless compared to alternatives. It allows you to deflect one direct attack every 3 seconds, something a scribing skill can already do without eating a 5-piece set bonus. And it applies major vulnerability to the one target that attacked you, rather than everyone in a cone in front of you, like Turning Tide, or whoever you heavy attacked, like Archduke Deverick, or everyone hit by Flesh Colo from a Necromancer. It's you can't control who it targets. It doesn't do anything to help you. It barely ties into the skill line that it's supposed to be connected to in literally any way. Like, it's literally like you cast a skill from that skill line, and boo bam bam bing, you get from the shadow skill line, I think it is. You get this bonus that doesn't help at all. 0 out of 10s on a max. This isn't good. The Infinite Archive changes overall are kind of decent, although I think the Minotaur Marauder may be bugged, as he tends to change targets during heavy attack windups. Great. The housing thing exists. Most people seem to like it. I have no opinion other than it's probably a good thing to have. Scribing changes were solid. Good shit. I'm glad they're adding more stuff to scribing. They're just making it better. And that's most of it. Oh, they removed no proc PvP. That was unexpected. Whatever, man. No one's playing Ravenwatch regardless, so I don't see why it matters. This is just an underwhelming update. I feel like they rushed this out with only one big feature and then went back on vacation before the inevitable backlash of whatever the PvP update is coming to the game at the end of the year. But they also just announced that, so I have a video to make on that because I just found out what it is, and I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm not going to make a video on it until it's out on PTS, so I can at least test it first. I don't want to just shit all over it or something, or praise it, suck its dick, and then have it be awful. So I'm just going to wait until it's out on PTS on Monday to start writing a script for that. I think it's also important to point out that it's kind of a weird choice to release one dungeon DLC and a chapter DLC this year, especially in a time where many are complaining about the lack of value offered to subscribers of ESO+. The only DLC we get access to this year as part of our subscription is the Signs of Athelia update, which brought almost nothing major to the game. You could say Tarnished Nightmare, I guess, which so many people hate because they're tired of hearing glass shattering sound effects every 8 seconds in Cyrodiil. And it was also bugged at launch, which didn't help. Why should I renew my subscription when it comes around again? Everything is going to be base game this year. I'm not saying there should be essential skills or sets locked behind a paywall. As a matter of fact, I don't think scribing should even be a paid thing. It should be base game. I think all critical core gameplay updates should be base game, personally, classes included. Just my thoughts. But at this point, I'm only subscribed because if I cancel, my inventories will be completely obliterated by the crafting bag kicking everything out when I want to craft something. I become enslaved by this obnoxious design. For a year of them trying to get back in our good graces, it sure feels like they're taking half the year off to work on whatever other MMO project they've been assigned to on the side. I don't know. I just love giving 10 years of dedication to an excellent game only to be forgotten about and put on the back burner while they work on something I likely won't care about. Just feels like my loyalty doesn't mean anything to them, especially since most of the things they give to the community are usually for people who are new to the game, so they're just trying to expand their player base rather than actually give a shit about the ones that already exist. Well, while this video was not what I wanted it to be, at this point, I'm not even sure if I can go forward with making the positive video I wanted to make. Weirdly enough, I'm still addicted to this game, and the scribing system was all I hoped it would be. The new skill styles are one of the first things I've wanted to work for in this game since, like, Godslayer was new. And to be fair, I haven't even gotten Godslayer yet still at this point because my main class has been fucked so hard that I don't even want to bother trying to get into prog groups for it. yeah, but skill styles is one of the best things they've added. They're still adding more skill styles. They're still all in-game attainable, which is great. They're not monetizing the shit out of it. Their monetization model needs to be readjusted anyways. I think there's just a lot of problems with the way that it works. I really wish they would look at something like Warframe for inspiration in terms of monetization. I think they could do a lot more with it, with the game by doing that. And I think they would appeal to a lot more people by having that. The subscription thing, I think, is not a great system. I don't think the craft bag is a great idea. There's just a lot of problems with it. So I will say Gold Road is essential, if only for its scribing stuff, which will hopefully become base game later. I don't know if it will be, like Julia Crafton did from Somerset. I think it should all be base game anyways. Update 43 is disappointing, and I'm gonna give you a preview of my next video by saying I'm willing to bet update 44 will be mediocre as well. But maybe it'll surprise me. Given the updates, the stream they did, I'm not confident in it. Anyways, I'm gonna get out of here so I can let my voice rest. You can probably hear me fucking starting to get scratchy, a little scratchy. But thank you so much for watching. This was a long one, I know, but I have a lot of thoughts on this. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks about the Gold Road update, the stories particularly. If you haven't gotten into scribing, I recommend it highly. Ulfsild's Contingency is such an indispensable skill for almost every class. Only Arcanist. Arcanist is the only class that I don't feel it benefits from scribing like at all. And even then, it could probably still use Ulfsild's Contingency because it's just a good skill. But yeah, that's all from me. Please check out my other videos. Come see me on Twitter/X. I have it linked in the description. You can come check that out. And I will see you hopefully soon. If I ever get around to recording these things consistently, I'll be back. I promise. I love you. Okay. Bye.
Woo.